Hey everyone, it's Pat from Pat's Music, and today we're talking about soloing. Now I was going to do these videos as 10 different ones, but I thought, you know what, let's just put it all in one video so it's all in one place for you guys. Now, we're going to go through 10 different ideas. Now some are going to be technique ideas, some are just going to be sort of phrasing ideas or ideals in themselves, which I'll just talk through. But what's going to be great is every time I show you a new technique, so every time we go into a new different point, I'm going to show you a little melody line that I've written out for you. I'm going to show you how to play it on tab, and then I'm going to play a little bit of the backing track for you so you can have a go at playing over it as well. So definitely grab your guitars, and we're just going to go through one point after the other. And then at the very end, the backing track will be in its entirety at the very end, and then I'll have the tab flashing up of all the different points so you can go through it. Or, yeah, again, these are just some really basic ideas just to get you guys thinking about different movements or melodic ideas or phrasing or techniques, right? All of that awesome stuff. These are just ideas, and I've specifically made them quite simple so that you can make them more interesting yourself. So once you've learnt these different melodies, take them and run with them and then make them your own. That's the whole point, guys. Enough of my talking, let's get up to point one. Here we go. So the first point, guys, is something that always comes up. What are the right notes to play when I'm soloing? It's such an open-ended question that could mean anything. What are the chords going on? What's the bass line doing? What's the sort of rhythm? What's the general vibe, you know, of the song? What are sort of the melody notes that the singers might be? There's so many different questions you need to ask yourself. So it's just so much simpler, guys, to not think of it that way. Don't think of there being right notes or wrong notes. Just think of there being just different flavors, just different tastes. Now, you know, you could even think of it like something like ice cream, right? A flavor of ice cream that I like, you may not like, but a flavor of ice cream that you like, maybe I don't like. So you need to think of it as just personal preference. There are no right notes, there are no wrong notes. So in this video, again, I'm going to show you how to target different notes and different notes that are within the chords and bass lines that are going on behind this particular backing track. So they will work well, but then we're also going to go outside that and go into chromatic notes and notes that you wouldn't actually find in the chords or the bass line, but notes that just stick out. But again, these are just some of the tastes and flavors. If I put on the backing track right now, you could play any fret on any string of the guitar. Doesn't matter. There's no right or wrong answer. It's just what you feel and how, you know, the music that you're playing makes you feel, and you know, and how you want to express your inner voice. That's all that it is. There's no right or wrong notes, okay? Okay guys, so definitely grab your guitars now, because I'm going to start showing you melodic examples, and in this section we're going to look at technique. So we're going to look at hammer-ons, pull-offs, bends, and pre-bends, and then slides. Right? So I've just written down some very, again, simple melodic ideas. Once you learn them and you play them, then, you know, make them your own, change them around, move them up, move them down, try anything you like. This is just to give you different ideas of how these different techniques sound, okay? So we've got, gonna have tab through the entire thing. Now there's no sheet music here, so you have noticed that there's no rhythm with tab, right? So you could just play it like this. You know, one solo could just be like that. Because there's no rhythms, there's no way to know. But I did that on purpose so that because there's no rhythms, once you know that these, you know, notes are in this particular phrase, again, add your own rhythms and change it up. Okay guys, so as you can hear, there's a backing track in the back there. Now I'm going to show you how to play it, but here's the tab of what I'm playing. I'm going to play for you the example, then yeah, go through it and show you how to play it. Alright guys, I'm going to go through and show you how to play it now. So come in with your third finger on the 7th fret of the 4th string. Then first finger on the 5th fret. Then, okay, there's a lot of letters here. Now what it means is you play the 7th fret. You bend up so it sounds like the 9th fret. Then once you've bent up, you then release it so it goes back to the 7th fret. So 7, bend 9, release 7. So it sounds like this. Okay, that's the first phrase. So now guys, in this next section, see we've got PB, pre-bend. So what it means is your third finger is actually on the 8th fret of the 2nd string. But what you want to do is you want to already bend the string and then play it once it's already bent. So the 8th fret should sound like the 10th fret. And then you release it back down. So pre-bend. So you're already bending up the 8th fret, bend and then release back to the 8th fret. And then you play 5, 6. First and second finger. Good job. So bending, of course, is a lot of fun. If you're not sure how to bend or not sure, how to practice bending, again, check the link in the Grab On playlist below, guys. But yeah, that was just a quick example just to show you one idea with bending. Now let's have a look at sliding. Okay guys, so come in with your third finger on the 7th fret of the D string. Then there's a slash there, so you want to slide to the 9th fret. Once you're on the 9th fret with your third finger, play it again. Then on your first finger, you're on the 7th fret of the 3rd string, slide back to the 5th. Then put your third finger back on the 7th fret and slide to the 9th. And then using your second finger on the 2nd string of the 8th fret, play the 8th fret, then slide to the 10th and back to the 8th. That's it. Again, just take this idea, run with it, take some parts from it that you like and make it your own. Next one. Okay guys, so you want to have your first finger on the 2nd fret of the 3rd string, hammer on the 4th with your third finger. Then use your first finger on the 4th fret, same string, hammer on to the 5th with your second finger. Then use your first finger on the 5th fret, hammer on with your third finger on the 7th. Then use your first finger on the 7th fret, hammer on with your third finger onto the 9th. Then use your first finger on the 9th fret, hammer on with your second finger on the 10th. Drop down a string, use your first finger on the 8th fret of the 2nd string, and hammer on with your third finger on the 10th. Drop down a string, use your first finger on the 7th fret and hammer on the 8th. Do that last hammer on again, 7th hammer on 8th, and then play the 8th fret. So that's how it sounds. Good work guys, now let's check out some pull-offs. Alright guys, come down with your third finger on the 10th fret of the 1st string. Play that with your third finger and then pull off to your first finger, which should be holding down the 8th fret. Okay? Then you want your second finger on the 8th fret, same string, and pull off to your first finger, which should be on the 7th fret. Then you have your third finger on the 7th fret, pulling off to your first finger, which is on the 1st fret. Then you want your third finger on the 7th fret, pulling off to your first finger, which should be on the 5th fret. Then you want your pinky on the 8th fret, pulling off to your first finger on the 5th, on the 2nd string. Then move up another string, have your 3rd finger on the 7th fret, pulling off to your first finger, which is on the 5th fret. Then jump up a string again onto the 4th string, or the D string, have your 3rd finger on the 7th fret, pulling off to the 5th fret. And then again, 3rd finger on the 7th fret, pulling off to the 5th fret. And then last 4 notes, just play the 7th fret with your 3rd finger, drop down a string and play the 5th fret with your 1st finger, and then continue again, 3rd finger on the 7th fret of the 4th string, 1st finger on the 5th fret. So it sounds like this. Well done, guys. Okay everyone, so we're going to have a quick talk about writing memorable lines. Now, one thing that really helps when you're writing memorable lines, as opposed to just soloing and just throwing notes out there into the air, right? Writing memorable lines, stuff that really sticks in people's heads. Like a vocal melody. Something that sort of sounds like someone's singing, or, you know, that affects me, you know, something that makes it a little bit more memorable to the listener. So one idea that you can make things, you know, more memorable to the listener is repeating ideas, and once you've repeated that idea, then a little bit, just embellishing a little bit on the idea. So you have an idea, then you repeat it, then you embellish it on a little bit. I'll show you what I mean. So the idea here, it sounds like this. So that's the idea, and then the embellishment so the idea is we've got a nice simple melody there. It's nice and easy for the listener to hear and to understand and all that good stuff, right? And then what you're doing is you're playing it, then you're adding in a few more notes or embellishing and just make it a little bit more interesting the second time round, okay? So, but you've still got the same idea, you're just making it a little bit more complex. And it's a great idea when writing memorable lines because it's not like you've repeated the same thing over and over. You've slightly changed the variation and added embellishments to make it a little bit more interesting. But I'll show you how to play it. So come in with your first finger on the D string, 7th fret, and drop down a string and use your 3rd finger on the 9th fret of the G string, and then your 2nd finger on the 8th fret of the B string. Do those same notes again, then have your 1st finger on the 7th fret of the 1st string, and then your 2nd finger on the 8th fret of the 2nd string. Okay, so I'll play what we've got so far. Okay, now we get up to the embellishment. So now start off again with your 1st finger on the 7th fret of the 4th string, and then play that. Hammer on with your 3rd finger on the 9th fret on the same string, and then jump down with your 3rd finger on the 9th fret and 2nd finger on the 8th fret of the 2nd string. Okay, do the same thing again. Then 1st finger on the 7th fret of the 1st string, then pinky on the 10th fret of the 2nd string, then 2nd finger on the 8th fret 2nd string, then pinky on the 10th fret again. So the final embellishment. Good job there. So just a simple idea, yeah, but just have a go and see how it sounds over the progression. So now we're talking about breathing. Now what I say when I mean breathing when you're playing music is to think of your solos like someone is in fact breathing and singing and talking. Now if you've ever had a conversation with someone that's really hyped up on sugar, or someone that just really talks really fast and it just keeps going at you. There's only so much information you can take in at once before you're like, okay, I've had enough, I'll see you later. So soloing can be exactly the same. If you're just going through the motions and just chucking out everything that you can, right? It's going to get very boring for the listener, and also you're going to get quite tired quite quickly. So sometimes you need to think about breathing, and what that means is just exactly like as it sounds. Just having a long note, having a bit of a rest, a short note, mixing it up with a long note. And with a long note, you'll naturally get that volume drop as it starts to delay, and it will just sound nice. It will just sound like someone's singing and breathing. It will sound like a little bit more human than something mechanical. And that's what we're doing here. So I'll show you how to play it. So it's just really easy, guys. Come in with your first finger on the 5th fret of the 3rd string. So hold that, a little bit of vibrato would be ace. Drop down a string, 5th fret quickly, and then drop down to 5th fret on the 1st string. And give it some vibrato there as well. Good work. On the next example, guys, you want your first finger on the 7th fret, 3rd string, let that breathe. Then quickly slide up with your 2nd finger on the 8th fret to the 10th. And then use your first finger on the 8th fret of the 1st string. Well done. So much more melodic there, and again, feels just a little bit more human. Good work. Okay guys, so we're halfway there, so great job. Now the 5th thing we're going to talk about today is not putting all the cards on the table. Now, it's a really common phrase, and I think about it this day, I think it's great, okay? Not putting all the cards on the table. That means when you start a solo, don't just, all the time, just immediately going into like throwing as many notes, as many phrases as you can, and don't go crazy. Just start building up to it and sort of do a little bit here and there, but certainly don't throw in everything that you can do and everything that you have all at once, because then where are you going to go? If you think of it, how are you going to build up to anything if you've thrown all your cards in at once, so you've given everything that you can? So just sort of back off and sort of slowly build up. That's definitely what you want to do, not throwing out everything on the table. Yeah. The next thing we're talking about is chromatic notes, okay? Now these notes may be in the chords, they may not be in the chords, they just make things sound a little bit interesting, because sometimes, let's say you've got just a major chord, right? If you were to solo with, a note that's outside the chord, let's say like E flat, it certainly clashes, but it certainly jumps out and makes things sound really interesting. So sometimes with chromatic notes, they're really good to sort of poke out for a little bit and then resolve. So I'm going to show you 2 different examples, guys. Let's jump into it. So come in with your first finger on the 5th fret of the 2nd string. Then what you want to do, right, is play the 7th fret with your 3rd finger on the G string, 2nd finger on the 6th fret, and then 1st finger on the 5th fret. And then jump up a string and play the 7th fret on the D string. So what we've got so far. And then finish with your 1st finger on the 5th fret of the 3rd string, then slide to the 7th, and slide back to the 5th. Good work, guys. In the next example, have your pinky on the 8th fret of the 3rd string, and then your 1st finger on the 5th fret of the 2nd string, and then again your pinky on the 8th fret, and then play chromatically 1st finger on the 5th fret of the 2nd string, then 2nd finger on the 6th, 3rd finger on the 7th, pinky on the 8th. And what it sounds like, guys? Good job, guys. Okay guys, so we're looking at arpeggios, and what arpeggios means is that you're looking at notes within a chord. So we're targeting notes within the 2 chords that are in the song. There's only 2 chords, it's C major and then A minor. So if you were wanting to play along with the progression, C major, A minor. That's it, okay? So the notes that I've written out for you guys are notes that, again, are tackling the notes within those 2 particular chords. Let's have a look. So the first chord is C major in the song, so let's come in with our 1st finger on the 5th fret of the 3rd string. That's your C, then you drop down, that's an E. Then you use your pinky on the 8th fret, and that's your arpeggio. 1, 3, 5, so that's for the C chord. Then we finish up with a 1st finger on the 5th fret of the 1st string. Okay, finishing up there on an A, and then going back, pinky on the 8th fret of the 2nd string, back to G, and then 1st finger there on the 5th fret of the 2nd string, E. Okay, so it is using some other notes as well, but it's very arpeggio focused. So that's the C major arpeggio, so you should play that over the 1st chord, but it'll sound great over the whole progression anyway. And the 2nd is the A minor, so you would play this over the A minor progression, okay? So let's have a look. Let's come in with our 1st finger on the 5th fret of the E string. Then you want your pinky on the 8th fret, okay? Then you want your 3rd finger drop down on the 7th fret of the A string. So 1, flat 3, 5 for A minor, A, C, E. Then you want to jump down, and on the 4th string you want to have your 1st finger on the 7th fret, pinky on the 10th, and then 3rd finger drop down on the 9th. So it's just a 2-octave pattern. That's all it is. Well done. And the second time, when you finish on the 9th fret with your 3rd finger on the 3rd string, 9th fret, slide up to the 10th, and then back to the 9th, just to add a little bit of flavour. But that's it, well done. at target notes, and target notes are a great way just to really sort of start training your ear to sort of hear what particular notes you like over what particular chords. It's very good just to learn the scale shape and go up and down the scale over and over again. That's great. But if you don't give meaning to every note, then every note is just a throwaway. Every note needs to be important. It needs to be either building to something or fading from something. That's just how I like to think of it, right? So how we sort of started with this example is I played an arpeggio, a C major arpeggio for the C major chord, and then for the A minor chord, an A minor arpeggio. But then we sort of went into playing the root note, so maybe the C, and then the A, and then we went even further and we played maybe the fifth of every chord, so the G, and then the E, and then we played, you know, the third of every chord, so we played the E, and then the C, and then we mixed it up a little bit and added in the fourths, and then we just played over a few different target notes there. But the whole point is that when you play over this progression, just try and pick a note. Sort of if you hear the first chord, which is C major, maybe try and play anything that's C major, C, E or G. And then when you hear the second chord, maybe play an arpeggio that would be the notes, you know, A, C and E in A minor. And then branch out, maybe try and target the fourth, or the fifth, or the seventh, or the second. Maybe just try and hold just some target notes. F sharp might not be in either chord, but it resolves really nicely to G. Or, you know, resolves through F down to E there. That sounds quite nice too. So just picture it just like you're painting a target on a note, and you're gonna attack, you're gonna attack that note, and you're gonna see how it sounds just playing that note over that chord. You know, letting the notes breathe in the meantime and just listening, just sort of hanging back, because sometimes you can be so, you know, caught up in playing which particular scales over which particular chords, and you know, is my timing right, are my bends in tune? Sometimes all of that can be whizzing past your head, you know, and you could be worried about, you know, your fingers and getting the right sounding notes and not buzzy and everything. There can be so many things going on. Sometimes just targeting one particular note, making sure that note sounds great, can really help you, you know, hear the progression as a whole and then build solos from that. So just give it a go, and I'll show you how to play it now. So come in, guys, with your first finger on the 5th fret of the 3rd string. Okay, there is our C note. Drop down, first finger again on the 5th fret of the 2nd string. There's our E, and pinky extended onto the 8th fret of the 2nd string. So that's our 1, 3, 5. C, E, G. So that's for the first chord, right? Now for the next chord, come in with your 3rd finger on the 7th fret of the 4th string. That's your A. Drop down and use your 1st finger again on the 3rd string, 5th fret. A, C, and then drop down and use your 1st finger on the 5th fret of the 2nd string. A. So the first chord, so for C major, and for A minor, and then just try and mixing it up and just target different notes as the chords go by, and try and, you know, one chord per, try there, you know, 1 note per chord, try 2 notes per chord, just see how you go. Just target different notes and see how they sound and how they make you feel. Good work, guys. So now we're looking at scales. Great job for making it so far. So what I did there is, when the C major chord was going on in the background with the track, I played a C major 1 octave scale. And when the A minor chord came on, I played an A minor pentatonic. And then I played the C major scale 2 octave over the whole thing, and A minor pentatonic scale over the whole thing 2 octave as well. So all I did there was going up the A minor pentatonic scale, then moved over the C major scale, then back, that's all that it was, guys. There's really nothing to it. So these are the two scales. I'm going to show you how to play the two scales that you can use. So all these notes are going to be great. They're going to sound really well. This is more, diatonic, keeping within what's already there. Again, to your ears, it may sound awesome. Someone else's ear may not sound great, but these are the scales that will work over these chords. So let's check them out, right? So come in with your second finger on the 8th fret of the E string. Then use your pinky on the 10th fret, same string. Drop down a string, use your first finger on the 7th fret of the A string. Then your second finger on the 8th, pinky on the 10th. Drop down, use your first finger on the 7th fret, third finger on the 9th, and pinky on the 10th. That's your first octave. Continuing with your pinky on the 10th fret of the D string. Drop down a string, first finger on the 7th, third finger on the 9th, pinky on the 10th, second finger on the 8th fret, pinky on the 10th, first finger on the 7th, and then finally second finger on the 8th. So that last octave. Whole thing. Good job. So that's the C major scale. So that'll work great over the C major chord, or again over the entire progression. Now let's check out the A minor. Have your first finger on the 5th fret of the E string, then use your pinky on the 8th. Drop down, use your first finger on the 5th, third string on the 7th. Do the same thing on the D string, first, 5th, third, 7th. Same thing on the third string, first, 5th, third, 7th. Then use your first finger on the 5th string, then use your first finger on the 5th fret of the second string, pinky on the 8th, and then first finger on the 5th fret. That's it. That's the first octave, those 6 notes. And continue from there. Now, a lot of people add the pinky in on the 8th fret of the first string, but it's important to remember that the scale actually ends on the 5th fret. So that's adding in the next flat and third. Otherwise, well done, guys. Well done for making it to the end, guys. It makes me so happy when people make it to the end of the videos, especially when it's long videos like this, right? So good job. Definitely, earn a thumbs up from me. Well done. And so what we're talking about in here is we're talking about creating and building a story. Now, what that means is everything that we've talked in this video, whether it's a technique like bending or hammer-ons and pull-offs or sliding, whether it's creating a memorable line and then then adding adding little notes here and there, target notes, arpeggios. All of those are great different ideas, right? So what you could do is you can approach a solo in this manner. You could write one idea. Maybe it starts off using some arpeggios. The next idea, maybe again, you want to try and add in a little bit of flair and have like some, maybe a pentatonic scale with hammer-ons going on. Next you want to add in some bends, okay, all that stuff. String together your ideas until you're telling some sort of a flowing story. It's not just like suddenly you're all the way up here, and then suddenly, suddenly you're all the way over there, and there's like, well, it's a bit disconnecting. How do we go from being really high to really low? And it's all over the neck. It's just disconjointed. It's like you're reading a storybook and you've kind of flipped to the end. Oh yeah, okay, then go back to the start. It doesn't really work. So try and string together your ideas. One idea is just to sort of come in on the thicker strings first, then just continue down to the thinner strings. Okay, so that was quite nice, starting on the thicker strings, then finishing all the way up higher. Another idea, guys, is to come down in Farmer's Corner or the dusty end of the guitar, right, and think of some sort of melodic phrase. Try and keep the continuity, keep it going, and just build it up and end up in the high register. Again, using that sort of as a climax point, right, and then just telling a story. Again, very similar thing, similar approaches, but just giving you an example there. Alright guys, so that was the end of the video. Great job for making it through. The whole point of this video was not to have 10 separate videos where they could be quite hard or tricky to find, just one. You know, you go through one day, you go through the first point, come through, you go through the second, so on and so on. So hopefully you guys made it through that way, because there's a lot to absorb. But otherwise guys, great jobs. This was just a couple of my ideas. Again, you're going to be going through so many more solo examples and everything like that. So it's just to get you guys started. Backing track's coming up. Now I'm going to play it twice. Once where I'm going to flash up some different techniques that we talked about. So if you want to, you know, try the different licks and, you know, bending and hammering on and sliding and all that stuff, awesome. And then the second time, okay, the second time, it's just going to be nothing. It's just going to be chord progression in this key with these chords. Do whatever you want, guys. It's coming up. Great job. Well done for making it to the end. Again, if you like the effort, definitely like this video. Did you have a good time? Did you like it? Leave a comment below and let me know, guys. Always lovely reading those comments. See you guys again. Bye.